Thank you everybody for joining us today for the industry update. We appreciate you getting on this webinar with us each week. Melissa and John will be presenting what's going on this week, and we'll be using the chat feature as usual for asking questions. And please make sure to mute your lines during the presentation. Thank you, and I will pass this over to you, John.
Thanks very much, Hope. There is a lot going on this week. Last week certainly was one of the best weeks for restaurants in a long time, which Melissa will talk about that in just a moment. I welcome all of you today. Glad to have you tuning in again this week. I would remind you that today's webinar is designed for our restaurant, hotel, allied members, and our travel and tourism partners and other friends of PRLA. And this is not a press event. We're happy to talk with the press at any time about COVID-19 or other subjects. So feel free to reach out to us. But if you're with the press today, this event is off the record, so please disconnect. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Melissa Bova. Melissa?
Thanks, John. You're very official and calming today with your intro. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Updates on all fronts today. Some things you're going to say yay, and some things you're going to say, Melissa, that's confusing, and I'm going to say I agree. So that's your intro to where we are in terms of things happening today. So this is where I'm going to start, which is federal, which I always start at, but don't yell at me, because some of you are going to want to yell at me. This week, Speaker Pelosi did introduce another version of what we call the HEROES Act, and we call it 2.0 because there was a 1.0 that was about $4 trillion. This one is about $2.4 trillion that was introduced yesterday. In short, and I want to bring up, I've got all types of cheat sheets today. In short, it does include that other round of PPP that we've all been waiting for, that we all desperately need. It also includes, as of right now, the $120 billion grant program specific to the restaurant industry. And we've gotten a few questions about that. That grant program is inclusive of caterers, so you can stop asking me that question. In addition, it is inclusive of a restaurant, food stand, food truck, food cart, caterer, saloon, inn, tavern, bar, lounge, or similar place of business where the primary purpose of being served food or drink is occurring. Something to keep in mind with that bill is that if you are a franchise location, if there are more than 21 of your locations in the world, you are not eligible for this. So if you are a small franchisee, the Restaurant Act specifically does not include you. It also, the HEROES Act includes some funding for state governments, in addition to other funds, bailouts for specific industries. Everyone's very excited. $120 billion is a lot of money. With that being said, the Restaurant Act is, and this version that the House has introduced is not expected to be considered by the Senate. Once again, the Senate is saying that's too much money. It's not going after the right things. And we do not expect, if the House passes it, which we expect to be a party line vote, the Senate should consider it in its current form. So don't start spending $120 billion worth of recovery funds for restaurants, because right now I don't see that provision in its current form getting across the finish line. With that being said, Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin, I guess that's how you pronounce it, they are unveiling another plan to counter the Pelosi plan today, and that will be revealed later this afternoon. The hope is that that will be the grand compromise that we need to get something across the finish line. Word is that the alternative plan will include that liability protection that we've been talking about and advocating for so long. So the hope is that that plan will be introduced this afternoon, and they will find a middle ground. And from there, we will figure out the path forward in terms of the next round of recovery. So stay tuned for that. I know you've been getting a lot of grassroots emails from our national organizations and from PRLA. Please continue to engage on that front. The fact that Pelosi included Restaurants Act in the recovery proposal just shows how your advocacy is working at the federal level. And I think it will also help for us to get more specific restaurant industry recovery funds from this next CARES package or heroes package or hope package or whatever it is they decide to name it. But as I mentioned, we are running out of time. There is talk that this last push could be the last attempt at a push to get something across the finish line before Congress breaks to go home and campaign for re-election. So stay tuned to that. Again, don't hang your hat on the 120 billion right now. We're going to fight to get everything that we can, but I don't see that current package that was introduced by Pelosi being agreed to by the Senate and moved by the Senate. So that's my federal update. And I don't know what you guys were doing last night, if you watched the hot mess that was that debate, if you could call it a debate, but that is also going to be driving a lot of the action at the federal level as well. So legislative session, lots of things happening within the legislature right now. I do have House Bill 2787. That was that veto override that the House took up last week. Of course, the hope was that, and that was the sports bill that we've discussed. And I always said, that is our test run for our bill, our House Bill 2513. The House did bring it up. They ran that the same day as our bill moved in the House, and they needed 135 votes. They only had 130. So that veto override did not occur. And this is what we're seeing is we are seeing Democrats that'll put up the vote for a bill. Then when it comes to a veto override, the governor's exerting a lot of pressure to get them to stay with him on this. With that being said, I was with one of those Democrats who flipped his vote this morning, and he voted to sustain the veto, so he didn't vote for an override. And he said he just got beat up in his district, and that's not a vote he feels comfortable doing again in the future, just because of the response that he got for sustaining that veto. So this is where we are on 2513. We are in a bit of not even a holding pattern, but the problem that we have is that when a bill passes the House and the Senate, the House passed the bill, they sign the bill, send it to the Senate for the Senate to sign. You technically have to be in session to do any official Senate business, and the Senate doesn't return to session until Monday, October 5th, so next Monday. That is the earliest the Senate will sign the bill. At that point, the bill will go to the governor's desk. It could get to his desk by the afternoon of the 5th. That starts the 10-day clock of when he either has to sign the bill, veto the bill, or hold his nose and just let it become law without doing anything. And from what we saw with the sports bill, we anticipate he's going to wait the full 10 days if he's going to veto it, in which case we'd be looking at a veto on the 19th of October with a potential override vote on the 20th of October. So that's our timeline as it stands right now. This is what we need, and this is kind of, and I'm going to get into concerns. Right now, we need you to start calling all of those Democrats that voted for the bill and urging them to stay firm with the industry in terms of a veto override. That can start now. That should continue. That should include multiple calls to offices. That should include multiple emails. We need them to know, and we're seeing this. We're seeing the response from some of our elected officials who said, I've never seen the industry engage in an issue like they have in this, and they're watching and they're responding to it. So those calls that we asked you to make last week, we need you to continue to do it. The focus needs to be on the House members right now, because the veto override vote will happen in the House first. So I know we were surprised when the bill passed last week in the Senate, and the next day the House ran it, and we all had to scramble to get the House votes together. But right now, the Senate means nothing to us if we don't get a veto override in the House and keep 135 votes to do that if we get to that point. So what am I thinking? What are my concerns? We anticipate, and as you know, I always like to make predictions, and I'm only right 30% of the time, but it doesn't stop me from making predictions. The governor said he's going to veto the bill. I anticipate that he's going to veto the bill. I anticipate that he will also lessen some of the mitigation against our industry even further beyond what he's already done in terms of 50% within the next week or two, because I do not think he will get enough Democrats to sustain his veto if he doesn't move the needle more. Because keep in mind, we got 145 votes in the House on the current measures, even 50%. So he's going to have to move more. So the question's going to be, One, does he not move because he's that confident that he can keep the votes? And I don't think he should be that confident, because I think we have the votes currently to override a veto if he vetoes it. Two, does he move enough that those people who would override a veto now say, well, we've moved the needle enough and I'm going to stand with the governor? So that's what we don't know what the future is going to be. But now more than ever, we need to continue that pressure in terms of advocating for the minimum of 50%, the return of bar seating, the elimination of the meal requirement, and an official change to allow private events to increase to 50% capacity. So don't stop on that. We will be sending PRLA staff, we'll be sending a message to all of you if you live or your business is located in the district of a Democratic representative who voted for the bill. But also, not all of you are tied to your property specifically in our database. So don't wait for that email to start reaching out. Start reaching out now. And if you get another email following up, you know, that's a helpful reminder as well. So we are looking at the next 2 weeks to be key to get this to move. Grant program. Last week I was like, grant programs are flying. We're going to get stuff done. We're hitting a bit of a halt at this point, and that's because once again the state is waiting to see what the federal government does. If the federal government allows more creative use of those CARES Act dollars that we haven't spent yet, and we do have $1 billion left within Pennsylvania's treasury. So, and there's talk about maybe pushing back that December 30th timeline into next year to spend the money. So grant programs, we're still moving them. We anticipate a bill being introduced this week or early next week in the Senate that would create a $500 million grant program for the entirety of the hospitality and tourism industries. Right now, it's so big that I don't know how helpful it's going to be, because it's inclusive of performing arts venues, hotels, restaurants, any type of small attraction. It's just inclusive of everything. And I joked with them, I said, great, everybody gets $5. So we are working through how that grant program would work and how it could actually be helpful to everybody. And that, again, we have bills moving. Our House Bill 2615, which is our grant program in the House, came out of committee last week or 2 weeks ago. Time flies when you're having fun. And that's all kind of sitting there while they try to figure out what to do with this CARES Act funding. But they will be putting out another broad tourism and hospitality related grant program that we expect to be introduced sooner than later. And then, of course, it'll be up to leadership to decide what they want to move and when they want to move it. Another item, liability protection. There is a bill moving today that could potentially be amended with some liability protection language in the House. I'm not rah-rahing and cheering right now, because there is a lot of pushback, especially from the Democratic side. And if there's pushback from the Democrats, then you have concerns with the governor. But they are starting to move the needle and start to have those discussions within the House, potentially amending a bill today or tomorrow as it pertains to liability protection. But also, as I mentioned, we do expect that the new federal bill to be introduced this afternoon will also have liability protection. And as I've told you before, I don't care how we get it as long as we get it. So we'll be keeping an eye on both of those items. VGTs, they never go away. There's always like VGT stuff floating around. Just an update on this, there will be a hearing next week in the Senate Community Economic and Recreational Development Committee. It is the longest named committee in the history of committee names. And that will be on Senator Corman, the majority leader in the Senate's VGT bill. It is a public hearing. PRLA will be submitting comments. We aren't going to testify at this one because, quite frankly, we've been testifying it a lot, and this bill has so many things to still be worked out. It's not really something that we think is worth wasting all of our political capital right now when we're trying to get you guys reopened and where you need to be. And if we think the bill is going to get some traction, PRLA will engage at that time, but we will be submitting comments to that hearing. We will not be testifying at that one, but there is continue to be conversations of how VGTs could be an avenue for revenue for those of you that need it, especially at a time when you can only operate at 50% without bar seating. Session insights. I say this because every year we have a 2-year session in Pennsylvania. So and then we have re-election. So we have our 2-year session. We're nearing the end. We're getting close to the end of the year and the election. And when that happens, our legislature sometimes gets a little tired and they start talking about canceling session days. If that happens, they are looking at potentially canceling a week of session at the end of October. So that makes all of these items that we're working on really important that they move quickly, because if they decide that legislating is hard and they want to go home and run for re-election without getting our things across the finish line, that's something that we'll be pushing back on. So continue to read the daily updates, because if we need to activate, it will be there in terms of activating on some of these issues, especially if there's talk of canceling a session day here and there. The House was supposed to be in next week. The House canceled session for next week. Not too much of a concern because most of our bills are in the Senate, but depending on next week, if the Senate cancels session in the future, that's something we're going to ask you to engage on. I don't know if you heard, since I've mentioned it about 16 times already, there is an election in a little over a month. I almost said next month, but we are still technically in September. We are working, and I'm working because, what's another project on top of projects, of an opportunity to really engage all of you in terms of supporting those candidates that have really stood up for the industry over the past 6 to 7 months. And we have had some legislators that, one, have introduced bills, 2 have spoken publicly in support of us, and some Democrats as well that have put up a hard vote in support of our industry. And a lot of those people are being targeted right now. There is a nasty mailer that went out against a Southeast Republican candidate who's been a vocal supporter of PRLA, basically saying that she voted for 2513, which reopens restaurants completely and makes it unsafe to operate, and targeted her in that aspect, which is funny because the bill passed with bipartisan support. So I'm looking at options. I have a meeting next week, so stay tuned for that, on how we can get you all to engage a little bit more to show the support of the industry for those candidates and elected officials who have just really stood up for us at a time when we needed it the most. So definitely stay tuned for that. Probably within the next week or 2, I should have something put together. So now you all know to participate in a webinar 2 weeks from now, because that's probably when I'll talk about it. What's next? Are we getting into the headache stuff? Yes, the headache stuff. Certification. So here we are. We are less than a week from when you technically need to self-certify. And I would be lying to you if I said I am comfortable and PRLA is comfortable with the self-certification and the information that they are collecting. With that being said, it doesn't look like the self-certification is going to go away between now and October 5th. And October 5th is the deadline for you to self-certify to go to 50%. You can be at 50% now, but you need to certify by October 5th. We have been able to confirm, and this was the biggest concern that we had with self-certification, was that unsworn falsification to authorities, and how could that be held against you if you fill out this self-certification and a guest comes in without a mask, or your employee pulls their mask down because they are having trouble breathing, and all of a sudden you're charged with a misdemeanor. That is not what's going to happen here. The unsworn falsification is specifically tied to if you fill out the certification and lie, purposefully lie. So if I say, I'm the owner of Melissa's Bar and Grill, but I say John Longstreet is the owner, even though he's find that out, that is when that unsworn falsification to authorities item might trigger. So generally, there will not be any increase in terms of fines or penalties or enforcement if you self-certify. Do I think it's shenanigans that our industry has to self-certify? Yes, I do. You're already following the rules, but I don't know if this is a needle that we're going to be able to move between now and the 5th. So it does look like in the end, in terms of enforcement, self-certification is going to have to be a path that we all follow. We did get some questions regarding to determining your capacity. We provided some type of mystery formula that you need to use if you do not have a stated occupancy. So you should have a fire code occupancy. Some of you don't. you have a few options there. A lot of your townships actually do have your occupancy on file. So you can reach out to your townships and your zoning code people, and they can tell you what your capacity is. Also, there's a formula that you can use having to do with egress and square footage and mysterious numbers and calculations that you can do to determine your capacity. I'm telling you this because no longer can you use the 24 per 1,000 number to determine your indoor occupancy. You can use it for your outdoor, but you can no longer use that number to determine your occupancy. And you do have to list your occupancy when you fill out your self-certification. So, if you have questions with that, like I said, we did provide guidance in the daily update. I believe it was on Monday. So take a look at that. But if you have a fire code occupancy, God bless you, because your life's going to be a heck of a lot easier than those who are not able, do not have access to their occupancy. And then I talked about enforcement. So that's where we are on the certification front. There we go. Okay, here is where we are on 25-250, and I do have some updates because I spent all of this morning researching county enforcement measures and who's enforcing and who's not enforcing, and calling departments of health that never pick up their phones. So it's been a really special morning over here at the PRLA. Where we are in terms of the court case. Nothing has changed in terms of the state guidance. The state guidance is still 25-250. The state is unable to enforce that because it was struck down by Judge Stickman. We are in that gray area, though, because we do have Judge Stickman, who ruled that 25-250 was illegal. But then we had another federal court judge that ruled that it was legal out of a Philadelphia court. And therefore, it's going to be up to the Third Circuit to determine, is it illegal or is it not? We do not know when that ruling is going to come down. General talk is that it will be within the month, just because of that we have conflicting opinions, and we need an answer on that soon. But for right now, the state is not able to enforce that 25-250 number. So if you are in a county, and I'll get to specific health departments, if you're in a county that is controlled by the state, as of today, without any changes at 11:22 a.m., you should be able, without enforcement coming after you, operate at 50% capacity for an indoor event if you are not in an area that's governed by a health department. That could change. As I said, we could get a ruling from the court, we could get a new decision from the governor, but as of right now, that 25-250 cannot be enforced in the 60 or 58 counties that don't have a health department. Counties with health departments. Erie is not doing 25-250. Erie is saying 50%. So if you're in Erie, you can do 50%. Bucks County is one of the few that specifically did an announcement saying 50%. Chester and Delaware, which I'm really proud of myself on this one, they did update their FAQ and they're also saying 50%. So they are not enforcing 25 and 250 for the Chester and Delaware health departments. Philadelphia is still saying 25-150, and they are staying firm in terms that they will be enforcing that, at least as of today. Allegheny County is saying that they are following the state guidance, and this is where it gets a little complicated. It doesn't say that they're enforcing the state guidance, and I have not heard that they're enforcing, but Allegheny County did say that they are following the state guidance at the county level. Before you all my Allegheny people tell me what you should do, I'll say it again, and I'll say it 4 more times. I am not a lawyer, so I cannot tell you what is going to be the best option for you to move forward. If there are people that are operating at 50% and they're not getting busted and you want to have at it. That's not for me to tell you. And I know that we have so many gray areas that are happening right now. And John and I are as frustrated as all of you are, but we can't tell you what to do and say anything with authority right now because things are constantly changing. So as I said, Philadelphia seems pretty firm. Allegheny County said they're following state guidance. I have not heard of enforcement on that front. That doesn't mean that they won't enforce. So everyone else, and for Montco, Montco is not, right now I'm saying Montco is 50%, but Montco announced last week that they were going to revisit their numbers. So Montco might create their own restrictions or regulations. We don't know. That was what they had said last week. They said 25,250 currently isn't being assessed, we're not enforcing it, but they said that they might be doing an ordinance in Montgomery County to change that. So right now you can do 50% in Montco, but stay tuned in case that changes. And yes, I am so sick and tired of all of these different rules for all of these different counties, and it's giving us all a headache. But that's where we are. And while I don't really want the Third Circuit to rule that 25 and 250 is a valid number, I think it would all help us a lot more if we had a clear answer on how to operate. And unfortunately, you won't get an answer from the governor's office because they won't comment on litigation. And then you have just counties that are just trying to figure it out as they go along as well. Is that the last slide? Oh, no, of course, local and reopening. So here we are, Allegheny County. It was the press release that had absolutely no helpful information of all press releases that came out of Allegheny County last week. They did say, good job to all of you for reducing your numbers, and that they would be following the state guidance. So really, and this is what we talked about with the 25,250, so that increased the outdoor capacities to 250. It also got rid of what I called the 11 p.m. hard stop in Allegheny County. So Allegheny County aligning with the state. Your last call for alcohol is 11 p.m. Drinks have to be cleared by midnight. You can stay open. Your regular hours serving just food after that 11 p.m. So that has changed in Allegheny County. That and the outdoor number are really the only two things that changed when Allegheny County said that they were aligning with the state. Philadelphia. Wasn't expecting this one, so I'll take it and run with it. Philadelphia is allowing an increase in indoor occupancy to 50% beginning on Friday of this week. So if you are a restaurant in Philadelphia, you can operate at 50% capacity. All of the rules still apply. I've gotten a few questions. This means still can't have bar seating because the state doesn't allow bar seating. In Philadelphia, you still need to have the mask and the shield. You still need to have both. And you are limited in Philadelphia to 4 people per table. And even Commissioner Farley said yesterday, he goes, if you have more than 4 people in your family, I'm sorry, you can't sit together. So they are holding firm on that 4 people per table rule in Philadelphia. So everything in Philadelphia, the rules, the regulations, the social distancing, the barriers are all the same, but you can increase your indoor capacity for serving the public to 50% beginning on Friday. And with that, I think I get to take a break and then we'll do questions.
Great. So we do have some webinars coming up. Tomorrow we are going to have a webinar presented by RSI. They're going to be reviewing budgeting best practices, industry standards, and tips on creating a strategic budget to beat COVID. So definitely join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. You can go to our calendar or to register or to the webinar listing. Melissa will be back next week with her update, and then we will be featuring United Healthcare to talk about their programs that they have available and the special pricing that they have available for members. And the next slide. Again, we are looking for these virtual experiences. If you have time to do a tour and record it and send it to us, or to do any kind of demo work and record it, it could be 5-10 minutes. It doesn't have to be much. Just something to share with the students so that they are connecting with our industry on a regular basis. Again, we're having classes on a regular basis every week. Our schedule is up on our calendar. I will be doing a mailer on that. And scholarships will be opening up on October 1st. So tomorrow we will be opening up our application process on our website. So if you know any students that are looking for some extra money for their schooling next year, please click them to our website. And I'm sorry, I don't have more to talk about. Melissa, are you ready?
Yes, I don't actually read the questions ahead of time because I just like to wing it, but here we go. We're going to talk about LCE. That's the topic of the week. PLCB has been breathing down our restaurant bars necks. The most recent, they told one of the local clubs was that people can only be in there for 1 hour, then they must leave. Not 1 hour after they are done eating, 1 hour total. Have you heard any of this? So here's and I'll talk about the meal requirement because I know that's part of this as well. LCE has its base here in Harrisburg, and that's where their legal counsel is. That's where the major is. That's where the head of enforcement is. And then they have field officers in the field all around the state. And because there is no, as you all know, there is a lot of inconsistency in the guidance coming from the governor's office or the Secretary of Health or DCED or LCB or anyone in between. You do have some agents that are kind of making up the rules as they go along. And that doesn't mean that it's right or that it's fair. I can tell you that there is no 1 hour limit in terms of when you go into a restaurant. If some restaurants are instituting a limit just to try and turn tables over, you might have an agent that comes in and tells you that. You need to push back on it, and you need to ask them where it says in the guidelines that you can only be there for 1 hour, because the only thing they can enforce is that which is in the guidelines that have been released and shared with the public via all of the various departments that like to release guidelines. I'll tell you this on the meal requirement front, and poor Hope, I think, has heard me tell this twice or 3 times yesterday. Here's where the problem is. So you have to get a meal to get a drink. The hot dog's going to save you from COVID, or the burger's going to save you from COVID. Here's your problem. So let's say you do not have to have food on the table to have another drink. So you finish your meal and you sit there for 3 more hours and have 7 more drinks. That is a problem. You sitting there for 3 more hours and having 7 more drinks. Now, if they say, we have some enforcement officers that are saying you have to have food on the table to get a drink. Well, in that case, why wouldn't you leave a single French fry on the plate and then still sit there and drink for 3 more hours? So it really is, and this is why that provision is so hard to enforce. It's open to interpretation. So what the guidance is that they are saying that is coming from Harrisburg is, I go and I have my burger, I finish my burger, and I decide I want another beer or 2 after that. That's permissible. Now, I can't sit there for hours at a time and keep on drinking and saying it's because I ordered a burger 4 hours ago. It's not clear. The guidance isn't clear. The guidance isn't written to be helpful or give you a clear answer either way. But I can tell you, if an enforcement agent is coming in saying you have to leave the restaurant within an hour, that is incorrect. And if an enforcement agent is coming in and saying that you need to have a French fry on the plate to have that beer after you're done eating, that is also incorrect. But should you be allowing people to sit around for 3 hours and drink without just 3 hours and just drink? No, that is going to be a violation. That is going to be a problem. Okay. What is ultimately going to happen with the self-certification? I am and have been very uncomfortable with this. Ultimately, they will have this information to do with as they please, and the governor has shown so much bias against the industry. Is there something that can be done? As I mentioned in my comments, there's really not much we can do on the certification. I will tell you that if you are a liquor licensee, there's nothing on that certification that isn't on your liquor license outside of the occupancy. The occupancy is the only kind of new information, and then them asking if you're a veteran-owned, minority-owned, or women-owned business. So there's not anything on there that isn't already captured within the PLCB database. And John and I will keep on telling you this, do we think it's necessary? No. Do we think it's fair? No, but I don't see this going away between now and October 5th. And I sure as heck don't want you not to sign it, operate at 50%, and then permanently get reduced to 25%, because that is going to be the penalty. So if you're not comfortable signing it, and I don't blame you, and I hate it as much as you do, you're going to have to stay at 25% until we get 2513 across the finish line. And you don't have to certify right now either. If you're kicking butt with outdoor seating and you don't need it, you do not need to self-certify by October 5th. It's only if you want to operate at 50% capacity beginning October 5th moving forward. Thank you for mailing your check. Thank you for being members. Thanks for ensuring that we all still have a job. What requirements, if any, do you anticipate restaurants will ultimately need to adhere to with regard to touchless ordering systems? Is it enough to simply connect a QR code to an online menu guests can access via cell phone, or the government require the touchless system to extend to online kitchen ordering systems such as Aloha? Additionally, we happen to have a location at the Pittsburgh Airport. Can the U.S. Department of Transportation require us to cover the cost of an end-to-end touchless system? That would be quite costly. I have not heard anywhere of end-to-end touchless systems. I mean, and to be honest, I'm a frequenter of many restaurants, and a lot of them are using the QR codes and just putting that on there, and then you use it to read the menu, and then you place your order with the server, and then they go through and place the order. I have not heard anywhere, any type, even in the country, any type of requirement like that. So the touchless is really, that's not something that we're seeing. And John, I don't know if you've heard anything of, to that end, but yeah, the QR codes, you can just put them out there. Some people don't know how to use their phones for that, and in which case you might want paper menus for them to look at, but there doesn't need to be a touchless transaction from beginning to end. From the 9/29 PRLA update, Bucks officials have announced that events may operate at 50% capacity with social distancing and mask wearing. I assume this refers to restaurant indoor seating only, but I think the word events may be confusing me. I work in a hotel event space. I still believed, no, you are allowed 50% capacity in Bucks County. It's not, the 25 limit is not being enforced in Bucks County. So you are able to operate as of today at 50%. But if we get a court ruling that changes things, that's going to change things. But as of today, that's where it looks like most counties are going. They're saying 50%. Ben shared Bucks guidance. If somebody has used that formula that we put in to figure out your capacity, I would love to see how you did it, because my eyes started crossing when I looked at it. Let me see. One of our restaurants saying they aren't able to go to 50% because they can't get enough employees, so they're not planning to self-certify. Do you see this as being the right move, or should I be telling her to self-certify? Anyway, no, you do not have to. If you're not going to go to 50%, you don't need to self-certify. Self-certification is only if you want to increase to 50%. And if you decide you don't want to, or you want to wait and see how things play out, and on November 1st, you decide it's getting cold, I want to self-certify, you can do it then. There is not a hard, the only hard date is October 5th, and that's if you are at 50% and you want to continue to operate at 50% beyond October 5th. We have more people requesting a drink while waiting for takeout food dinners, which they've either pre-ordered or ordered in-house. Would you mind clarifying if we may serve them a drink until their food arrives and they leave with it? Michael, I need to look at the rules for that, because I feel like we looked, and because they're not consuming the meal on the premise, then no, they could not get a drink and take their takeout with them. They need to be ordering a meal to be, yes, they have to be ordering a meal to be consumed in conjunction with the alcoholic beverage. Even if it's 4 people sitting at a table and they only order 1 burger, the 2 need to be coupled together in terms to have that drink. And that, I think, was clarified in the LCB guidance. When you self-certify, you're agreeing to only 25 max for private events, which right now cannot be enforced. Correct. I mean, the guidance from the governor's office is still 25 to 50. That's his rule. That's what they put into place. That's what the governor said the number should be. He can't enforce it right now because of that court ruling. But yes, if the courts change, whether you self-certify or not, if they decide that 25 to 50 makes a lot of sense, even if it doesn't, he can enforce on that. So it doesn't change any of the rules that are out there. He's not getting rid of 25 to 50. It's still in every piece of guidance and document that you see. We just know that they can't enforce it until they have a court tell them that it is enforceable. I did answer Montco. Let's see, on Chester County going to 50%, I could not get an official answer from the county yet. On the CCHD website is a pointer to Wolf's 50% press release. So my questions are, has anyone seen the executive order from Wolf on the 50%? Yes, that was in last week's update. We did get the executive order from Wolf and the Secretary of Health on the 50%. And then for Chester County doing events at 50%, let me see if I left it up here. On the COVID FAQs for Chester County, they changed the guidance for gatherings. So under gatherings, it says how many people are allowed at a gathering. COVID is terrible, blah, blah, blah. Spread is more likely when you're in close contact. We know this. Then it goes, the health department does not currently provide recommendations on specific maximum numbers for indoor or outdoor gatherings. We strongly recommend that organizers of events and gatherings at indoor and outdoor ensure the key prevention measures are implemented, like social distancing of 6 feet, hand washing and sanitizer, but they do say the health department does not currently provide recommendations on specific gatherings. And that is in the Chester County COVID-19 FAQ document. I did try to call them. I could not get somebody to pick up the phone. In Allegheny County, we are a restaurant that used to be open 24 hours on weekends, naturally no longer. In Allegheny County, if you're serving food, you can be open 24 hours. You just can't serve alcohol after 11 p.m. The 11 p.m. close at the state level only applies to alcohol. It does not apply to food service. So if you are a diner or anything like that, this doesn't impact you. You continue to operate at 24 hours. You just can't serve alcohol. Yes, so for Philly outdoors, you can have 6 people at a table if they're outdoors, 4 people max is indoors. So there are 2 different numbers because that makes so much sense. But yes, Philadelphia is special. So if you are a family of 5 and you would like to sit together and not make a parent or a child sit by themselves, I suggest you get an outdoor table. So with both Pelosi's Here's Act 2.0 and Munchen's forthcoming proposal, who is eligible for round 2 of P3? Well, we don't know because we don't know what Munchen's proposal is on that front. And yes, the Pelosi, the grant program is 20 or fewer locations. That limitation does not apply to the P3. So let me pull that up again. Paycheck Protection Program under the Pelosi plan. Again, this is not, don't take this as this is going to happen, because this is not going to happen. Eligibility for a second draw. A business must demonstrate gross receipt loss of 25% or more in either the first, second, or third quarter of 2020. You have to have less than 200 full-time employees. There is no exemption that there was before for the P3. So this is really limiting who can get that second draw of the P3. But it does include all nonprofits in this provision. And like I said, we do expect the administration to come back with a broader, more inclusive second drawdown of the P3. So again, I know people have a lot of specific nitty-gritty questions. We don't know the answer because we don't even know what's going to get across the finish line. And I did answer the 24 hours. Yes, you can operate 24 hours for food. You just can't serve alcohol. Yes, the wraparound style safety glasses. My understanding is that they are okay, but they would like to see a picture. So Donnie, let me know. Let me know if you do. I'll get an answer on that. What happened to liquor discounts and state help? Where do you certify? I think we have the certification up there. We are hoping to move some more liquor bills next week in terms of helping you with renewal fees. The licensee discount, there is a bill out there that would increase the licensee discount to 15%. The problem we're having there is with every extra dollar we get in a licensee discount, the less money the state receives, and they have a $5 billion deficit. So we're still trying to work through all of that in terms of getting a liquor bill moving, hopefully next week or shortly thereafter. We were under the impression that if we did not certify by 10/5, we would be stuck at 25% and could not change later. Are we wrong? I don't like to say anybody's wrong, but that is incorrect. You do not have to certify on October 5th. Like I said, October 5th is if you're operating at 50% right now and you want to continue to operate at 50%. If you decide down the line that you want to increase to 50% in February of next year, you can do it then. And you outline the rules for darts and pool clubs. I know that mingling is a no-no. If folks remain in seats when they are not shooting, is that adequate? I'm not aware of any limitations on those operations right now. You have to do social distancing. You need to be sanitizing like everything in between. If they are standing and shooting, then they cannot have a drink in their hand. All food and beverages have to be consumed, and they have to have a seat to sit in if you are a food or if you're a food and drinking establishment. For those who self-certify, what is your thought as to whether we must or should post anything at the location to show that we are certified? We are not planning to self-certify, but not sure. We are planning, but not sure. I want to post the governor's signage. Don't ask me where they're getting the money for this, because I don't want to know the idea of using taxpayer dollars. But when you self-certify, you will need to print out your self-certification. You do not need to post anything. But if an inspector comes in, you need to show them that you self-certified. You don't have to post it in the window. Now, because the state is so excited about self-certification and we all need another stupid thing to post on the door, they're going to be sending you some tchotchkes, like window clings and things that you can post to the public saying you self-certified, but you are not required to. You are only required to have the proof that you self-certified. So if somebody comes in, you can show them that you did and you're authorized to be at 50%. But apparently the state is spending our taxpayer dollars to send you some tchotchkes if you self-certify. I think, and we will get the order posted. It was in last week's, because as you know, the governor does an order and the Secretary of Health does a duplicative order, so nothing can ever go away, it feels like. To be clear, for Philly, restaurants going to indoor 50% only with self-certification, but 25 people, 150 still in place for event venues with banquets, meetings, etc. Correct. Yes, that is correct. As of yesterday, Commissioner Farley did clarify that they're not changing the 25, 150 right now in Philadelphia. That is a local enforcement, and they are still enforcing that as of right now.
Melissa, you froze.
Melissa, you're frozen.
We'll just give Melissa here a minute, see if she can't reconnect, and if not, I know we'll be in good hands with Mr. Longstreet.
I think Melissa's coming to my desk. Hold on one second. All right, Melissa's coming to my desk. Here she is.
Okay, my internet died, so here we are. I do not like your setup. How do I see? You're not there. I'm not here.
I know. What's going on?
Can you all hear me? Can you see and hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Ooh,
Gotcha.
Okay. Lordy. Where am I? Okay. Okay. So yes, you can sell to-go bottled beer in your gift shop. You always could. That never went away. I guess my question about self-certifying, even though counties are allowing 50% for private events, doesn't the self-cert limit us to 25 indoors? Wouldn't the 50% event limit knowingly violate the self-certification? No. The governor's rules of 25 and 250, those are his rules. He can't enforce it right now because of that court ruling, but those are his rules. So you agreeing to self-certify doesn't mean that you're going to get a felony. They've clarified there are no felonies, there's no misdemeanors in terms of self-certification. It's only if you lie on your self-certification. Wraparound style safety glasses, that's a Philadelphia thing. If you are not in Philadelphia, you don't need to worry about it. Philadelphia is its own special land, and therefore you have to have face shields and face masks on. And we will get, we can find, we have the orders from the Secretary of Health. Darts and pool follow-up, if it's a club gathering where the only people are using the designated second floor space, is that a private event where we need to have a sign-in sheet, etc.? You would want to go, you'd want to go back to the guidance. I mean, if it's a private event, but it's open to the public, you only need to sign, you only need to do the contact tracing if it's somebody reserving an event space for 30 people or something like that. So if it's open to the public, then no, you don't need to have a sign-in sheet. So sorry for being confused on occupancy for those with outstated fire code. But did you say there is no longer an acceptable formula? We must have an official code occupancy provided by the township. Couldn't that change the business as usual seating permanently, even post-COVID restrictions? You do, if you don't have a fire code occupancy that you know of, a lot of townships have it. And if you can't access it that way, there is that formula that we included in Monday's update as it pertains to determine your occupancy. They are not accepting the 24 people per 1,000 square feet any longer because the rules change every single day, it feels like. But you do, if you don't have that occupancy, you need to use that formula. But trust me, I'd suggest going to the township first. That formula makes my head hurt. Thank you, Sue, for the thank you. Can't wait to go figure out what's happening with my computer when we're done here. Thanks for the updates and hard work as always, Melissa and PRLA. Does anyone remember what we all used to be doing on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. before COVID? Stephen, I don't remember. I remember back in August or September, I asked the staff if we could have these webinars less frequently, and everybody said no. So I don't know. 11 a.m. is now Webinar Wednesday. To clarify, when you say if you don't have a fire code occupancy, you're referring to the city, not the individual business. If you have a business in a city that has a fire code, they need to contact the city for it. Correct. So we are seeing that some of you have occupancy permits, but it doesn't have the number listed on it for whatever reason. Like you have a certificate of occupancy, but it doesn't list what your occupancy is. And it's never really been a big deal because you've never had to figure out 6 feet of social distancing or 50% capacity. But what we have heard from the Department of Labor and DCED is that a lot of your county governments do have some occupancy for you on file just because of the fire code. So try there first if you do not have a listed occupancy. Otherwise, you have to figure out the formula. Thank you, Stacy, for the thank you. Am I going to get like 7 minutes of my life back today? This is nice. I think we are near the end. I'm going to slowly get up and scamper away before somebody asks another question.
Well, thank you, Melissa. Terrific job as always. And thanks, Hope, for allowing Melissa to interlope in your workspace so that we could continue all of these great answers. Hope, do you have anything else?
Write down her entire computer now.
Hope, do you have anything else you want to say in closing?
I mean, as always, we'll be providing a recording of this. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. And thank you for putting up with our little technical glitch, but we're all back on track now. And with that,
Thank you. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week. Thank you.